go inside, stoke your own fire, liberate yourself from fear, doubt, confusion, worry, sickness, disease. Dissolve all of those karmic impurities, and then you will see.
Hi, it's James here from Food Matters, and my guest today is Octavio Salvado. He is a yoga teacher and somewhat a teacher of teachers when it comes to the lineage of Tantra Hatha yoga. And he is a champion for a lineage-based approach to yoga, which is really taking it back to its roots. He's a vocal advocate of the proper process of achieving meditation, which he talks about as the crown jewel of yoga, and is openly vocal about different styles of yoga that don't always lead there because of the modernization of yoga. So today we're going to be talking about what do the ancients know about meditation. And meditation has exploded in public consciousness in recent years, and is one of the most searched terms on FM TV when we had the channel as well. And it's a very commonly searched term on Gaia, and many major platforms are now adopting a meditation approach to mind-body wellness. But what do the ancients know about meditation? What does Patanjali, Buddha, these great sages understand about meditation? And we're going to be learning that today, and specific processes in a way about how to make meditation effortless. So, Octavio, how are you?
I'm very, very good. All right. Wow. That was already in your introduction. My mind just went off in 1,000 different directions. We're going to have a juicy conversation today, James. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you very much, first of all, for having me on your show. And second of all, for figuring out that really delicate line between bringing things into the modern world, but with their traditional roots intact. I really respect you for that, and I love you for that. And I'm very grateful that there's people like you out there that are able to merge these two worlds, because as you alluded to a few moments ago, that's really what's happening in the modern yoga world. Is we are innovating like crazy, but we are in the process of doing that. We are disconnecting ourselves from the authentic yoga tradition, and that's why we're not seeing so many enlightened yogis walking around the city streets these days. It's because at the end of the day, asana does not cut it. It's never been about the asana, but we have got ourselves into this situation for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons is, meditation isn't as sexy as, some buff dude or some, chick wearing tight leggings, doing the fancy poses. It's harder to sell just someone sitting there looking completely serene. It's not as sexy. So it doesn't sell as well. And you and I both know that there's billions and billions and billions of dollars in yoga these days. So money has corrupted it in a lot of senses. But I think also there's an innocence to it as well, that we just haven't been properly educated, that in the process of yoga coming over from the East to the West, a lot of the subtle nuances got lost along the way. And it's really a case of the divinity is in the details. Yes. Yes. And I think, people are becoming more clued on to the benefits of meditation for stress reduction, reduced inflammation, reduced pain, more peace and calm in their life. But then people go, great, I want to meditate. They sit down, they put some incense on, they cross their legs, they close their eyes, and their brain is going wild. And look, guilty, I've been there, early on in my meditation journey. I'm like, okay, this meditation sounds great. I want to do it. And I just try to meditate. Sometimes it's effortless, and then many times it doesn't work. And then I tried visualization where people would guide me through. I tried different types of music, and chanting helped a lot for me early on. That was a big thing for me. Chanting really helped me meditate more. But then when I came across this lineage-based approach to yoga, which, and maybe speak to this, yoga is meditation, union. That is the whole point of yoga. And I think like you said, people think yoga is about bendy, stretchy legs in the air, but it's actually about meditation. So I would like you to speak to that a little bit, but then when I found out about sort of this process that these ancient people followed, well, you do this first, and then you do this, and you do this, and then when you get to the meditation, it's this, in my experience, these incredible blissful meditation, and then it makes sense. It's like, wow, this is an ancient process about how to meditate, and we've just skipped that in the modern world, and we've downloaded a Calm app and listened to someone's voice, and we think that that's going to do it. And
in my experience, it's not true. So let's start with this question. What is yoga? Is it about movement, or is it about meditation, or is it about pranayama, or is it about kriya, or what is this? What is the goal of yoga really?
Absolutely. Well, in order to do that, then let's just go to the Rolls Royce of sources, which is the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, because in that is often presented in the modern yoga world as an introductory text on yoga, but nothing could be further from the truth. The very first sutra from that text, it says something along the lines of, the Sanskrit is Atta Yoga Nushasanam, which means, here you go, well-prepared student, here is your practice manual to take you to the culmination of your practice. Not here you go, new student. Here's something that you can look at and underline and try and understand academically or logically or intellectually. You can only understand that text if you're a practitioner. And then everything becomes very, very clear. What does it talk about? Well, it lays out these different paths to yoga, which is union, based on our own current capacity. Now, what is yoga? Yoga is both a process and it's a result. And in the Yoga Sutra, we look at both of those things. In the Sutras 2, 3, and 4, it's very, very clear. It gives the tone of the overall teachings of the entire text. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the result of stilling the fluctuations of the mind, which is what you just spoke about. That good luck to you if you think that just sitting down and lighting some incense and having a dimly lit room and having the legs in half lotus or something, good luck to you if you think that's going to bring you to a state of true meditation and yoga. It's not going to happen. Why? Because we've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of mental activity leading up to that moment where the mind has been doing things. So it's not going to just be still because we ask it to be still. We have to maneuver it there. We have to lovingly, intelligently guide it into that space. When we do, tada drastu svarupe vastanam, that's sutra number 3, then we rest in our own pure self-essence. And we can talk a little bit about what that is exactly, but that is the goal of yoga, to be able to rest in our own pure self-essence. And then sutra number 4 is vritti sarupyam itaratra, which means, and if you can't still your mind, then you will think you are your mind and you will suffer. And this is the teaching of Patanjali, of Buddha, of all of the masters. Yes, suffering is a reality on one dimension, on one playing field, but there is a way to avoid suffering. What is it? You need to connect in with the part of yourself that exists beyond suffering. And there is a part. It comes by a lot of different names: the Purusha, the Atman, the self, the spirit, the soul, Vishoka, Buddha Loka. There's a lot of different ways we can talk about that space. But the message is unified from the masters. If you want to live full of joy, free of fear, then you have to go internal. And you have to learn the systematic progress or process to anchoring yourself to that part of yourself that is free of afflictions. And that's what the Yoga Sutra is about. It's what the Lotus Sutra is about of Buddha. It's what, at the end of the day, that's what yoga is about. So how do we get there? Well, Patanjali gives us a multitude of paths. In the first path, for those who are ready for just to drop straight into that higher state of meditation, which is a very rare few, then the path is called Abhyasa Vairagya, which is just sit down, basically concentrate your mind on some kind of an object. And Patanjali gives us a list of objects. First, something physical, maybe a flame. Then something subtle, like a mantra or an internal kriya, a movement of energy to focus on. Slowly, slowly guiding the mind towards stillness, but stillness that moves towards the mind becoming absorbed in something innately positively charged. And that is the samadhi. And a flame will leverage a certain quality of meditative experience. Then the mantra will will bring us to maybe a slightly higher experience of mental absorption or meditation or samadhi or whatever we want to call it. It's the same thing. And then the highest objects that Patanjali mentions, he calls it asmita samadhi and ananda samadhi, which is exactly what we just spoke about. Being able to connect with asmita, which is a sense of our own true self-essence, ananda samadhi, infused with innate joy. That is the goal. That is where we're going. But there is a process to it. Remember, that path of abhyasa vairagya in chapter 1 of the Yoga Sutra is for the few who can just sit down with a mind completely free of afflictions. That's not me. I don't know if that's you, James, but that's not me. I've got some afflictions going on.
Ditto.
So then, God bless him, Patanjali gives us the second chapter where he starts to talk about what? Pranayama and asana. For the people like us who are dedicated and want to reach the goal, but have got a whole backlog of mental spinning behind us because of running businesses, having families, the education, you can say whatever you want about that. But all of these things put the mind into a spin. So then Patanjali says, all right, brothers and sisters, I recognize that maybe you haven't been sitting in a cave for the last 30 years, and you've got a family, and you've got children, and you've got employees, and you've got taxes. So here you go. Let's do it this way. Let's look at some denser practices, starting with asana, to start to burn through these peripheral layers of mental impurities. And then from the asana side of things, then we move slightly in to that middle zone of working more energetically with pranayama or with asana that is coupled with conscious breath techniques. And then from there, slowly, we guide the mind. We guide the mind slowly from this physical playing field into the subtler playing field and ultimately into the meditative playing field. Because why? The mind is the part of us that is in closest proximity to the soul. So just hanging out in the body doing asana, there's too much of a leap there. You can't get back there to that pure space of joy and of self-remembrance. You can't get there. We need to use the body in asana to, yes, deepen our connection with the body. Let's be honest, these things are bloody amazing little vehicles. Let's love them and let's keep them healthy. And I know you're huge on that. Let's keep them vibrant and energized and rested and, you know, so they can carry us through this life with conviction. But let's not stay there. That would be only part of the story, and the story gets much cooler. So let's use the asana to ultimately transcend body consciousness and get into pranic consciousness and start to explore the energy world. Feel that subtle movement of energy rising and falling after we do this pose or that pose or this breathing technique. And then from there, through pranayama, we understand how our breathing shapes our mental perception. Yes. And then from there, we use the mind in a very systematic process. And there's a lot of great ways of meditation. There's a lot of terrible ways, but there's a lot of good systems. So I'm not going to say that what we're going to talk about today is the only map. I'm just going to say it's a map that's worked for me. It worked for Buddha. It worked for Patanjali. I think it's working for you, James, because it's so laid out. It's so, just do this, tick that box, then go there, tick that one, and then that one, and then that one, and slowly, with patience, with persistence, you will arrive to that final goal. And where is that final goal accessible through? The mind, through meditation. Yes. Not through prana and not through the body. They are portals through which we have to move our awareness slowly back towards that ultimate space.
Beautiful. And just for people listening that are maybe not as deep as Ock in the yoga vernacular, asana is movement or body movement. Pranayama is breath work. And so maybe translate some more as we go along, Ock. So let's talk about this. So I want to talk about this process first of all, because as someone who's been a keen meditator for a number of years, and as somebody I've been chanting Om Namah Shivaya and other unlocked mantras for maybe 20 years now. Very fortunate to have met certain people to guide me on that path early and to give me one of my primary understandings of the world, which is that everything is absolutely always unfolding perfectly. That was my first really key mantra that was given to me, that was given from a guru to a friend of mine that I had passed on to me. And so I felt when I started to understand more about Tantra Hatha yoga, I was really intrigued, because a lot of that methodology, a lot of that Kashmir Shaivism, that North Indian vibe, the birthplace of a lot of this type of these yogic practices, which have gone on to be Buddhism and then Hatha yoga and then Kundalini yoga, all have a root, like an area where they come back to. And then also studying Tantra, and I want to speak to this a little bit more generally before we go into the process of meditation, I found out that Tantra is not really about sex, which is what it was made up to be about and sort of popularized in America. It was more about this ancient practice for householders, for people that are not renunciants. So here's what I understand, Octavio, and let's speak to this a little bit. Most of the styles of yoga are really built for people that are going to give up everything and just go sit in a cave and practice yoga. But Tantra was born for people, like you said before, that have jobs, that have debt, that have problems. It's an everyday spiritual technology to help you calm your mind and feel more at peace and handle stress and anxiety and overwhelm with luminous grace. And first of all, is this correct? And then second of all, as you speak about what Tantra Hatha yoga is and how it's different from other types of yoga, where is Tantra Hatha yoga different to modern yoga? Let's just go through this process a little bit, and then we'll go to sort of the practice. It's in a bit more detail.
James, you're going to have to be careful with the T word, the Tantra word. If you haven't noticed, they're ripping it off Instagram. They're ripping it off a lot of social media platforms. We can't have the word Tantra in our advertisements anymore, because it has been so corrupted and so bastardized.
No.
Yes, which is very, very interesting. I mean, we're going to pull it back around, James. You know,
yes,
I like a good scuffle, so I'm up to the challenge.
Needs
but
a rebrand.
At the moment, it needs a major rebrand. Just a few days ago, there was a guy I think an Australian guy got arrested in Bali or kicked out of the country or something because he was here running tantric, orgasmic massage retreats. And that didn't go down too well. Like the Balinese, they know what yoga is.
Yes.
They know what Tantra is about.
Yes.
So when they see things like that, they get as mad as I get about it, because, you know, we forget sometimes that their roots are Hindu. They understand the essence of yoga, and when they see things like this, it's quite insulting. I feel the same way. Now, where did this corruption come from? Sting has a lot to answer for. We can definitely give Sting a call and let him know that he's really done a number on this term, Tantra. But more than that, it is it's a misunderstanding that has been around for a long time, and there's certainly been some people that have perpetrated the mistruth, and not just Westerners either. You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding coming from the Indian side as well. There is a wonderful set of temples in a place called Khajuraho in central northern India, close to Varanasi, not too far, a few hours drive. And you might have seen these temples before, James, or pictures of them. They're very beautiful. They're intricately carved with a lot of things, but part of the carvings are of people in quite interesting sexual positions and combinations and all of that sort of thing. And if you go to Khajuraho, I went and my teacher said, just follow the tourists around and follow the guides around, who are Indian government sanctioned tourist guides. Listen to what they're saying. And of course they're saying, well, you know, these temples belong to a 1,500-year-old sex cult. Look, you can see all of the pictures. And so the tourists, they stay on the outside of the temple, James, and they just take the pictures, and they get a little bit blushed and, you know, probably turned on as well. Who knows what they... But the point is, they don't get the message. usually never go into the center of the temple, inside, because it's black, it's dark, there's no sexy pictures on the wall. You can't really see anything. It's a little bit eerie. The message of those temples, which were the stronghold of Sri Vidya Tantra 1,500, 1,200 years ago, is don't get distracted by the peripheral luster of life. The real gems are on the inside, but it's dark in there. It's going to be scary in there. And what's really cool, James, is that in the center of all of these temples is a place for the fire pit. This is the teaching of Tantra. Go inside, stoke your own fire, liberate yourself from fear, doubt, confusion, worry, sickness, disease. Dissolve all of those karmic impurities, and then you will see. And then what happens in the temple, in the actual temple, when you light that fire, then the image of the divine reveals itself in the light of in the reflection of the light of the fire. It's the same within us. Those temples are an externalized representation of us and our own tantric journey inwards. So to answer your question, you said, is that correct? That it's about learning to live life more peacefully, more gracefully? Yes. But let's be clear, Tantra is also about power. It's about both. Why? Because, like it or not, we need power in order to move beyond our fears. We need power to remain peaceful when otherwise we just want to freak out and react and punch someone in the face. That takes power. Patience takes a lot of power. Compassion, forgiveness. How much power does it take us to forgive? A lot.
A lot.
How much power does it require for us to overcome addictions like smoking or drinking or drugs or whatever the addiction is? It takes power.
A lot.
So Tantra says, all right, if you're going to be in this world, you're going to need two things. You're going to need power, fire, and you're going to need light, meditation. And so that's what Tantra gives us. It gives us this dual principle of becoming more self-empowered from the inside, more confident, more courageous, more fearless. But then that is coupled with this path towards higher connection, so that power that we cultivate doesn't get corrupted, and it doesn't just sit in our egos and we, figure out how to manipulate the masses and make as much money as possible, because that can also happen. If the power side of Tantra isn't complemented by the meditative side, the self-awareness side, touching in on that part of us that is innately joyful and free and needs nothing in order to be happy, then we will probably use that power to get as much as we can. And that's what's happening a lot these days.
Yeah, true. It's a very ancient technology, and even I've studied with Chris Wallace as well, who wrote a book called Tantra Illuminated, and he sort of debunked and explained a lot of what the root of Tantra actually is, and it speaks to what you're talking about. It's this beautiful ancient sort of practice that guides us towards this inner light and this inner knowing. And for me, even just speaking about practicing with you, the first time I did a class with you in person was on the 4th birthday of the practice, I remember. And I came down from that class and I was like, that was the most expansive, most incredible yoga class I'd ever had. And I'd practiced a lot of yoga and a lot of different types of yoga. I've chanted in ashrams. I've, met esteemed spiritual people and spent time in their presence. But this was otherworldly. And to be honest, even when you talk about addictions and so forth, I drink occasionally. I enjoy that, and I love having big annual Christmas parties with our Food Matters team, and we'll go to islands, remote islands, places. It's always exciting. I don't mind a couple of margaritas or tequilas. After that one yoga class, Octavio, and my father has drunk quite consistently his whole life, and I wouldn't say alcoholism, but it's come and gone, definitely that vibe. And I instantly just stopped drinking that day without any effort whatsoever, and that's a year and something ago now. And so, there was no effort, there was no willpower. I just built up this internal feeling, this internal strength, this internal power, and then things just fell away. Other practices that were not serving me just fell away automatically. So I can just speak with authority on the fact personally that happened to me without any effort. You know, I knew it was something, I should probably cool it back a little bit, or, you know, I travel a lot, or I forget, I'm in business class, they're doing champagne, or they're doing this, you know. And then it just fell away. And even though I'd fly and I'd be, okay, I've got a great seat on the plane, they'd bring, no, I'm okay, I'm good. Actually, I'm totally fine, you know. And it's this fascinating feeling. And I've continued to experience that as I've gone through my practice. So one of the things I want to speak to now, and this is what I found most interesting about Tantra Hatha Yoga, is not only is the meditation completely effortless. That's the thing. When I get to the end of the practice of a class and you're like, okay, now roll over onto your side, take a few deep breaths after Shavasana, and now sit up and let's do some pranayama or some kriya and then go into meditation. That meditation to me is effortless like 95% of the time. Not always. Sometimes there'll be some part of my brain that's like, I'm not going to relax and you're still going to think about this. But to be honest, at an extremely high percentage, I go into a very, very, very deep meditative state, and states that I've touched only a few times in my life. And I'm consistently getting there now. And what you talk a lot about is this idea of vinyasa krama, which is the right timing, right sort of process, but also moon versus sun. And I want to speak to that a little bit, because right now I'm in a phase where I need moon practices, and I know that, and I go to moon and it saves my butt. Sometimes I need fire or sun, and I go there and it helps me out. But tell me how different pose categories affect the body pranically, because this is huge information, because most yoga practitioners and yoga classes that I go to have complete disregard for this. They're throwing in all these different types of pose categories, and then when you get to the Shavasana at the end, you don't feel like meditating, you're freaking confused. You're like, I'm awake, alert, my brain's running, I'm not switched off. And you have a very, very strategic approach for guiding, and not you, the lineage that you support. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry. The lineage that you are passing on this knowledge of has an incredible amount of knowledge around how to calm the mind and figure this stuff out, you know. And so let's start with this. If someone's feeling anxious, overwhelmed, stressed out, abandoned, not good enough, left, financially disrupt, all the big problems of the world, is it moon or sun, and why? And what do moon categories do, and what are those poses like? Let's go to there.
Oh my God. James, before we charge forward into this whole new dimension of conversation, can I just add in one little bit from the previous?
Yes.
What I don't want to communicate is that that sex is wrong, that drinking is wrong, that a little bit of recreational things here and there is wrong. There is a difference between enjoying the beautiful the beautiful aspects of life that interact with our senses and addiction. There's a big difference. What Tantra says is that those things on the outside of the temple walls, and there's more than just sex there, there's war there, there's opulence there, there's prestige and ego there. There's a lot of things on the outer walls carved into the outer walls of those temples. Sri Vijay is not saying deny, deny, deny. It's saying that those things will be a distraction to your spiritual evolution until you connect with the truth of who you are through meditation, through right practice, and then bring your higher sense of self into your lovemaking, into your into your warring, into your battling, business. into your business. Exactly. So it's not saying don't do these things. It's just saying beware, yogis, yoginis. There is a risk of getting into these sorts of explorations within the human realm if we are not connected to the true essence of who we are first.
That's so true.
Because then all our energy will just be moving outwards. We'll be looking for that sense of who we are in the outer world, and we're never, ever, 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 it doesn't matter how many people we sleep with or how much money we get or how many properties or whatever, we will never find happiness in the outer world ever. Never, never. Only inside. So if we don't bring ourselves into those things, we're in trouble.
And this is so interesting that this technology in a way foresaw the challenges of the world, you know, sex addiction, alcohol, prestige, money, power, war, greed, ownership, control over women, all these things. It foresaw them as traps. But most people in the West are chasing those things as the goal. The goal is more money, better wife, better house, better this. But then the people that have got them, you speak to them, and I actually fortunately worked with some of them early on in my career in private yachting, like top 10 wealthiest people in the world, and they weren't happy. It's like, hang on, you've got 3 private yachts, 6 helicopters, 12 villas, like your own football team. It's a lie. I know. And I'm like, oh my God, money doesn't make you happy. And even for me, I'm fortunately, you know, have access to money, and it's got no connection with happiness, Octavio. I tell you, like, happiness is being in that meditative bliss, being in that state where you're like, wow, I am the divine and the divine is me and everything is perfect and serving my soul's highest evolution. But it takes practice to get there. And that's what you're saying Tantra is, right? Tantra is, look, there's all these flavors of life. Be careful you don't get distracted by them. Come at it from your own true essence first. And then if your intention is infused with that pure essence, then you can partake in the world in a more calm state because you're not seeking external validation or happiness in other things. I mean, this is such a profound philosophical teaching, right? Big. Yes.
And also, James, I'd like to say that that whole idea that Tantra is about sex is an absolute lie. It is, friends, do not go there. You'll waste your time and probably mess up your relationships that you have. I've never met one single person in my entire life who is, we shouldn't even call it tantric sex because it's not that. And I'll talk about why that is not the case in a moment. I've never met anyone really, really inspiring to me that I thought, wow, I want to be like that person, or I want the relationship that they have. I want the life that they have, who've been following this pseudo-tantric path of the sexual side of Tantra.
Yes, yeah.
Because I mean, people like us are not meant to be doing that. Unless we have mastered our own energy first, our own minds first, our own Kundalini Shakti first, on our own, okay, then maybe it's safe. We can maybe go in there. But it's so rare that, we would be able to find a genuine teacher of the left-handed path of Tantra that would initiate us into that. It's so rare. There's few on the planet these days. And if we somehow mastered our Kundalini, mastered our minds, Samadhi is right there. Boom. Okay. And we did find a master of the left-handed path who would initiate us into what's called Chakra Puja. We probably wouldn't want to be in the Chakra Puja because it's not you and
let's not go there. It's full on. It's I know.
You're in a group of people.
I know.
You're in a group of people. Right? And traditionally speaking, it's not glamorous. It's not sexy. In fact, you would have, before anything sexual happened, you would have about 3 hours of pranayama and mantra to deactivate the rajasic, lusty, intoxicating effects of the sexual act, the wine, the parched grain, the meat, the fish, all of these things which are sensually stimulating. Practice is done beforehand to deactivate the rajas in it. So you're just getting the pure sattvic element, the pure goodness that is available within these things. But it's very specific mantras, James. It's very specific practices. And, let's just try and sit still for 10 minutes. If you can't sit still for 10 minutes, how are you going to sit still for 3 hours and do specific, mudras with your hands and pranayamas and mantras and then, sit with a woman on your lap with holding this breast and, chanting more mantras? It's not the bells and the whistles and the snatam kur on the radio and the sexy kind of someone playing the flute in the corner. It's none of that. It's science, man, and it's dry.
Yeah.
It's a system. It's a system like all other scientific aspects of the yogic path. So let's not get confused and think, well, maybe I can just sleep my way to samadhi, because it's not going to happen.
Not at all.
Become more conscious. Become more conscious intimately. That's fine. Become a better partner. If you want, become a better lover. Don't call it Tantra. It's not Tantra. People like us, we don't know what that is. Because it's so far away from what we are capable, or what we would even be interested in realistically. Let's just call it conscious intimacy. Let's call it something else, conscious lovemaking, sexual energy management. But Tantra,
not Tantra.
The sexual part of Tantra, that's very, very unique. It's very, very systematic. It's a part of a bigger process, and it's not very sexy.
It's not for the mainstream.
Exactly. So let's just work on our own meditation practice, James, and our own Hatha yoga, and let's get to the ultimate goal. And then whatever we bring ourselves to in life, whether it's lovemaking or whether it's raising a family, having a business, it will be infused with our own sacred essence. And that, there's nothing more beautiful than that.
I love that. So beautiful. So I'm going to circle back to the moon sun thing now. But one of the things that I really feel has been so practical for me in terms of doing my best to be like a conscious person in the world, trying to make a positive difference, create a movement, but then have that be successful so that I can reinvest in making more new films. So you're dancing in these two worlds, right? These like being of service to humanity, but also we live in a capitalistic world. And I think many people grapple with that. But one of the things I've felt in terms of bringing yoga into my day-to-day life is like how to manage overwhelm and stress and anxiety, because whenever you're running a business, you know this, your yoga, you quickly get tested, a lot. And people don't always react well to stress. They don't react well to overwhelm. But what yoga has taught me is to, in this extreme chaos, just sit with sublime peace and be like, okay, this is what's happening. Interesting. Okay, where to next? And if you can have that sense of peace and move beyond this reaction, you can be very gracious in the way that you go about life. And it's not easy, but yoga, and in particular this Tantra Hatha yoga, has taught me how to do that so much more efficiently. So one of the things is that different pose categories have a different impact on the brain. And this is what I found so fascinating. And you've taught me a lot because I didn't really know this so well. And if people are feeling the emotions that I just mentioned, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, or rejection, abandonment, not good enough, all these common feelings that people go through at different times in their life, then there's a certain type of pose categories that are designed specifically for that. And I love this and how you teach this. So tell me about what pose categories you'd recommend for somebody doing this.
The opposite of what most people are teaching these days, James.
That's true. And then when I go to a yoga class, they're not being sensitive to this. And I'm like, hang on, I know these yogis. They're great yoga teachers, but they don't know what Octavio knows. Why? Because ancient yoga's been lost and it's been modernized. You call it modern postural yoga, right? MPY. Yes. And now what you're talking about, this is ancient knowledge, and it's so relevant and it's lost, which is why I'm so excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the main things that are going on in modern postural yoga these days. They're heating the room. They're doing dynamic postures, a lot of standing poses, a lot of back bends, a lot of lateral stuff. Using ujjayi, there'll be music on the stereo, and there's a lot of this lifting of the chin business. All of those things, bar none, will stimulate your sympathetic nervous system. Just that. Well, if we're living in a world that is pretty sympathetic nervous system overstimulated already because of how busy it is, jobs, work, why would we want to exacerbate that in our time off? Why would we want to pay money to make our situation worse for ourselves?
That's just exercise.
So is there a time and a place for those things? Absolutely. But this is where we have to start being a little bit more strategic with what we practice, when and why. For example, if we are practicing 6 a.m. in Germany in the middle of the winter, put a little bit of heat in the room. Move your body a little bit more. Do a few more back bends. Breathe into the chest. Use a little bit of ujjayi. Why? To meet the moment, to meet the needs of that exact moment. Practicing in that way for the bulk of the Western world is not meeting the moment. It's meeting our imbalance and calling it balance because it feels familiar. But just because something feels good, it doesn't mean that it's good for us. It's like, to an alcoholic, a drink feels good, but it's not what is actually good for that person. In the same way, most yoga that's being taught these days is not good for us. And it's moving us in the 180-degree opposite direction from meditation.
Yes. Yes.
Not all yoga is good yoga, and certainly not all yoga is going to move us towards meditation.
Which it should. So yoga should move us toward meditation, right? That's the aim of yoga. Mm-hmm.
Let's just listen to Patanjali. That's what he's telling us. Yoga is to still the fluctuations of the mind. If you can go straight there, go there. If not, then you have to work pranically and physically with asana before then. But it's not going to happen if we're just blitzing through pose after pose after pose, deep ujjayi breathing, heated room, music playing, all of that stuff. That is pure mental fluctuation creation. So then what do we do? First of all, we need to get rid of this idea that that asana is about flexibility. It's not about flexibility, nor is it about cardiovascular fitness, nor is it about fun, believe it or not. Fun is what happens when you live in a way that's connected to your innate power and the sacred essence of your own mind. That's bloody fun, James. Living from that place where you have energy just to do whatever you want and you're creative and you have the energetic resources to go after your manifestations and bring them into fruition. Man, is that fun. But in order to get to that fun, we have to compromise a little bit of the fun on the mat. Turn off the stereo, do less poses, hold them for longer, develop an equal relationship with your in-breath and your out-breath. And for people like us in the modern world, we actually need to work more on the exhalation. We need to work more on, what you were talking about before as these lunar poses or the moon practice, which is a way of using body and breath to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. How do we do it? It's super easy. Fold forwards, friends. Yes. Stop doing all the vinyasas and the back bends and the back flips and the handstands and the flip dogs and whatever else. Just stop moving and fold forwards and lengthen your exhalation a little bit. It's so simple, but it's not sexy. And it's hard because as soon as we stop, then we have to look at the state of our own minds. And if the mind is busy, it's very hard to ask it to be still, because it will just be going and it will come up as frustration or distraction or mentally just going through all of the different swear words that you could call your yoga teacher because they don't know what the hell they're doing because they're making you hold this pose for so long and there's no bloody music. But that's the opportunity, and that's where we're at as a yoga culture right now. We need to slow it all down. Yes. Hold poses for longer, do less poses, work more on forward folding, developing the exhalation, abdominal breathing, add in some twisting, a little bit of Mula Bandha on the exhale. This is pure tantric technology to heal your nervous system, calm your mind, and just become a more stable person.
When you say Mula Bandha, you mean applying the root lock. What's another way of saying that? The perineum?
A little bit of engagement of the pelvic floor,
the pelvic floor,
which will happen naturally when we get very, very skillful
or like a
with
bit
our
like a Kegel, bit like a Kegel for a woman. Or something well, there's different ways of talking about it, I guess. I'm trying to make people understand what it is. So you're saying in general, forward folds, twists, extending the exhalation of the breath, and applying.
Let's leave the Kegels out for now. Forget about the Kegels.
But applying that lock, at the bottom of the base of the spine there, applying that muscle, those things do what? They calm mind.
On the exhalation only.
On the exhalation,
on the exhalation.
Right. So squeezing that in at the base of the spine on the exhalation. And those have an effect of what on the body, on the mind?
Of moving energy downwards. This is originally what the postures were created for, the asanas were created for. Every time you shape your body, it will open a certain area and close a certain area. The area that's open will allow for a deeper breath to move into that place. Now, as we bring our breath into there, as long as we're not listening to bloody Timberlake on the stereo and the mind isn't just, off out there checking out the person 3 mats down or whatever, if we can bring our mind and our breath into a certain location, then we start to liberate dormant, stagnant energies in those areas. So we build energy in certain areas based on the asanas that we're doing. It's very simple. 10 times out of 10, if you fold forwards, you'll only be able to breathe into your belly.
That's right.
There's no other place you can breathe into. Okay, so we're in a forward fold or in a twist. It's exactly the same. Breathing into the belly, slightly longer exhalation. If your exhalation is long enough, the pelvic floor will start to lift automatically. We don't need to grab it and squeeze it. It's just a very gentle lifting. And so our mind is down in that area. Breath is down in that area. So when we come up, what happens is energy naturally just starts to move downwards because of this gravitational force that we've created down here in the lower part of the torso. What does that do? It grounds the mind. Why? Because whatever you do with energy, you also do with your mind. Whatever you do with your mind, you also do with your energy. So in Tantra and in Hatha Yoga, we think, well, what's easier to maneuver? What's easier to work with, mind or energy? Energy, it's denser. Mind is like a slippery fish, you know, because we have so many beliefs and things from the subconscious mind. We don't always know, what are we really thinking in this moment? What was my motivation there? Because 95% of our decision-making process is subconscious. That's the slippery fish. But energy is much more graspable. And if mind and energy move together, let's move energy to shape the mind. That's what asana is for. Move the body to shape energy to shape the mind. Forward folds will have a pranic effect or an energetic effect, which will have an effect on perception. Back bends will have a very different effect on our energy body, which will have a very different effect on our minds. If we're already overstimulated, if we're already having trouble digesting our food and eliminating and sleeping, and we're already reactive in times of confrontation, don't do bloody back bends. Jeez. You're going to get worse.
Yeah. So then once
that's
we
the science.
Perfect. So once we do these, so say for instance, people are feeling anxious or overwhelmed or stressed out or all these things. And then they go, okay, so yoga teaches us, or this lineage teaches us to do forward folds, twists, extend the exhalation. And might I add that the only known way scientifically to move from parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system is to extend the exhalation of the breath. That's one key scientific fact, you know, to move into that.
From sympathetic to parasympathetic.
Oh, sorry, sympathetic to parasympathetic. Yep, I got that mixed up. So to move from like stressed, overwhelm, anxiety to peace and calm, extending the exhalation of the breath. And so to have that locked into this practice as well, so extending the exhalation, forward folds and twists, maybe applying a bit of that root lock on the exhalation, takes you into that space of feeling more calm, more internalized. So that's the first step, is asana. Then once you do these types of poses, and then you start to, like, in a way, energetically feel more calm and grounded, but just by doing 20, 30 minutes of that, less poses, like you said, not too many. And you often, when you guide people, after a pose, you'll just stand there and mount and let it settle in. You feel the effects of the pose. You're not rushing to that next pose. You sit with it, and it's beautiful to do that. And you just have your eyes closed a little bit. You feel the effect of the pose. Then what's sort of next? So there's asana, and then what's the next step in this sort of progression towards this meditation and this peace and this bliss?
So then the refinement is to work more specifically with the breath in a seated posture. You know, in the asana, there's things moving, so you can't refine the breath as well as you can when you're seated. But what we do in the asana is we start the process and we start shaping prana or energy in a certain direction, in a certain way. Maybe we're moving it upwards for the purpose of having more of an expansive meditative experience. Or maybe we're moving it downwards to have more of an internal meditative experience. And then there's a lot of different things we can achieve with our perception, a lot of different things. But it's a question of what we do with our energy. And so after we have started the process, we've started moving energy in a certain direction in asana. Now we take that momentum and we take it to the next level by getting stable. We sit down, stable base, straight spine, and now we can really start to doctor our energy in a much more precise way.
Yes.
And that's how we start to really take the mind and guide it towards a meditative state. That seated part of pranayama is invaluable. You know, my teachers have taught me from the beginning that if our breath is not perfect, meditation is not going to happen. that the breath, we use the asana also as a way to develop a deeper connection to our breath, or, start to liberate some of the tight muscles, or strengthen our diaphragm muscles so that we can become better breathers. That's also a part of it, so that when we do sit down, our breath can be deep and effortless. So
that's the process. So there's the movement, the asana, to liberate energy, to shape energy, to shape prana. Like the moon, the forward folds twist is more sending it down, apana vayu, right? And then there's the fire sun, which is more expansive, which is different pose categories. So if you're stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, you move more to the forward folds twist. Then you come to a seated position. Then you do pranayama, which is a type of breath shaping. And there's all different types of pranayama techniques. I've done, 20 or 30 different ones with the classes that you have. And there's different breathing. There's alternate nostril breathing. There's like extending the exhalation. There's holding on the exhalation too, kumbhaka. And then after that, or doing it, and there's also visualization in this traditional tantric sort of hatha yoga approach as well, where in a way you're visualizing different energy. So often one will be you're visualizing a light coming into your mind and then going into the middle of your head and then back out, and then you're shaping that and taking it to different parts of the body, moving it around. That's part of the pranayama, right?
In a way. But let me say one thing also. There are a lot of complex pranayamas as well. That's great. But at the end of the day, it's always the same thing. Simple is best.
Yes.
My advice for people starting off on this path and wanting to become more calm, more stable, and understand what is the foundation of meditation, it's very, very simple. There are 5 key things that we need to achieve in our breathing to leverage a natural meditative state. It's very, very simple. And I would say these are the most important things that people could know about how to breathe. Not just for health, not just for recalibrating the nervous system, but as a foundation for meditation. Here they are. Breathe abdominally and breathe deeply. That's the first thing. Sit down and just start to deepen your abdominal breath. That's number 1. Science already says that also has a positive impact on the parasympathetic nervous system. We know that, abdominal breathing. Okay, the next thing is when we get to pranayama and meditation, we want to remove any trace of volume in the breath. Why? Because now we're not about building power like we're doing in asana with the bandhas and the mudras and all of that sort of stuff. Now we want to start moving the mind inwards. If we are creating a noise with our breath, the external sense of hearing will get activated and energy will start moving outwards, and that will send the mind outwards. So deep, silent breathing, which for gung-ho asana practitioners, that might be hard to marry together, depth and silence, but we have to if we want to be good meditators. Breathe deeply, breathe silently, breathe smoothly. So there should be no disruption in the flow of your breath. Then make sure that the in-breath and the out-breath are perfectly balanced. You're not overemphasizing one over the other, but you're honoring the energies of both, the in-breath and the out-breath. Let me go through them. Abdominally deep, silent, smooth, balanced. And then the last thing is critical. To move from breathing to a meditative state, the last point is that we have to learn to eliminate any unconscious pauses at the ends of the breath. At that moment where the in-breath transitions into the out-breath, that point, if there is an unconscious pause there, it renders us susceptible to mental distraction or to being impacted by the thoughts and energies of others. If the breath is moving seamlessly without any pause, and yes, in some practices there are conscious pauses. That's a completely different thing. We're talking about unconscious pauses in the breath. That is why we get distracted. That is why the mind fluctuates. If we learn to breathe seamlessly, deeply, smoothly, silently, in a balanced rhythmic way, we will have no choice but to rest in perfect presence. So at that point, forget about the bells and whistles and all of these fancy things. Your mind will naturally become meditative if you become a perfect breather.
Wow. That's beautiful. And I feel that this is really what happens when you go through a process of a class with you. Like I find doing the asana and then doing the pranayama work, which is having this focus on the breath in many respects, these 5 sort of key focal points. Then when you get to the end of the pranayama, typically you'll be like, okay, now just let your breath go and go into your meditation. And you let it go, and you're not even breathing. It's effortless. You're like, am I in or out? You don't know. You're just in this state of, it's just doing itself. You've lost your mind and you're absorbed in this blissful meditation. And you let go of any focus. Yes, yes.
Which is our natural state. Meditation is our natural state.
Wow. It's all just calling us home, right?
Yeah, it's just a matter of just moving all of the stuff out of the way. Let's use the body and move the chunky stuff out of the way. Let's use the breath and move the subtle stuff out of the way. And what's remaining is just the pristine mind, just with the light of the soul shining into it, which is what? Just naturally joyful and very, very aware.
So beautiful. Unbelievable. And I feel that...
It's not complicated, James. That's
not
the
complicated.
Thing. It's not...
But it's misunderstood. It's misunderstood. It's misunderstood.
Yes,
this is the thing. This is what, and this is what I get upset about now, is that you've forever tainted me, Octavio, and I'm happy and sad at the same time, because now when I practice yoga and I go to somebody's class, I can't meditate, and there's no space to meditate afterwards. There might be a shavasana, and you start to drop in, and then they're like, okay, have a great day, everybody. It's like, wait, I want to meditate. But then sometimes there's so many different poses. There's so much advanced poses, and it makes me feel I'm not very good. And then I try this thing and then this thing and then this back bend and this twist and this thing on the ground. And then you're exhausted, you're sweating. And then you're like, well, that was a good workout, but I'm not stable. I'm not calm. I'm shaking. I'm like overstimulated. But when I do a class with yours, I feel calm. I feel powerful. I feel luminous. I feel great. I feel strong. I feel ready for the worst news and the best news, you know? And I feel that that's what yoga's meant. That's what yoga's meant to do. It's meant to make you, prepare you for the world. And so now I'm tainted in that the classes I do with you, or people that follow this same type of approach, I feel calm. I feel grounded. I feel good. I feel ready for anything. And other types of classes, I feel less prepared for the world. I feel like maybe exercised. I feel stretched, but I don't feel stable. I don't feel grounded, and I don't feel calm. And so I really want people to know that there is this ancient technology that can guide you to this feeling of supreme bliss, and it exists. And sure, there's probably multiple paths there, like you acknowledge, which I think is great. Like, you know, some people can just sit down. Some people can just chant for hours and get to that space. Some people can be in the space of a divine person or a guru that can just absorb them in meditative state, you know? But most lay people, most people like you and me, need to follow Patanjali's sort of practice, which is like certain types of poses with certain types of breath in a certain structure. And then when you get to the end, meditation is effortless. There's nothing to do except let go, and you're in supreme bliss. And I love that it works so often.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's time for the tradition to come back into the modern world of yoga, because we've hit a brick wall. And people's nervous systems are getting burnt out. We need yogis to be proper yogis, yoginis to be proper yoginis now, which is exactly what you said. Calm, stable, but vibrantly alive, aligned to the goodness and the godliness of their own true essence. That's what we need. That's what is going to be a big player in humanity transitioning into this next phase of our collective evolution, which is on the cards. But it's not going to happen on its own. We have to do whatever we can to usher that transition in. And meditation and yoga done well, for me, that's just the ultimate transitionary tool. Yes,
I agree. I concur. It's been true for me. It's been true for you. It's been true for many people that have practiced with you. And I'm excited to have some of the people in the Food Matters community maybe try some of your work, try a class, and experience what you have to offer. And when I say you, and you're the first to say this, it's not you. You're just one person in this chain of lineage that's coming down to now. And there's multiple other teachers that are teaching like what you're teaching, but unfortunately it's rare. This information is not well known. I think for Food Matters, this is what we've been doing for 15 or 20 years. Where is life-saving, game-changing information that's proven to be effective but not well known? They're the sort of things that I pay attention to, like intravenous vitamin C as a cancer therapy. Wow, who would have known? It's cheap, it's safe, it's simple, it's effective, but it can't be patented, so drug companies can't make exclusive profits off it, so nobody knows about it. Surprise, surprise. Yes. So my job, help people know about that. There's other alternatives out there. Or avoiding modern semi-dwarf, crazy, manipulated wheat because it breaks down your gut wall and has all sorts of hormonal chaos. People should know about that. Humans should know. So that's my thing. Now, I found it in yoga and in spiritual technology. It's like, wow, if you want to ascend the limitations of your body, of your mind, of your spirit, and be a calm, loving, connected person most of the time, let's face it, we're not all perfect, then there is a technology for that, and it's very effective. It works 99.9% of the time. It takes probably 60 minutes a few times a week or every day if you're really committed, but I tell you what, it works. And I'm so excited to have sort of stumbled across this, and now of course I want more people to know about it, and I want more people to be practicing yoga in this way, in a very systematic, very lineage-based, very traditional-based way, because I think if we bring that back, there will be more peace, more love, more liberation, more calm, and that's good.
100%.
So, we've had an illuminating discussion. I did take the microphone probably a little bit more than usual because I'm a little bit into this now, this last year.
Cool, man, I love it.
And I hope that it's the beginning of more conversations. I guess probably last question, what do you want to leave this conversation with for people? Is there anything you want to finish up with here, or any sort of last nuggets of wisdom you'd like to pass on to people listening to this today about meditation or about yoga?
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency is the key. Consistency and quality over quantity and complexity. Just do a little bit every day. We spend so much time doing random, non-important things every day. What if we just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes of basic movement? At the end of the day, just move your body a little bit and breathe. Then sit down. Take yourself through those 5 steps of healthy breathing. Do that for 5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes of asana, 5 minutes of conscious breathing, and then just rest with your awareness right here, free of the breath. Just rest it right here. This is where our sense of self-presence is most heightened. This is where that light of the joy and the sweetness of our true essence, it's really readily available there when the mind is calm. So just do a little bit every day. What's 10 minutes of our life every day? This is much better than doing a 3-hour practice on a Tuesday and a Thursday. The main thing that I want to leave people with is consistency is key. Just do a little bit of simple but highly effective practice every day, and it will change your life. Not overnight, but over weeks, months, and years, you will just become a far better, more capable, more calm, more patient, more loving, more courageous version of yourself. It's really just about consistency and quality, practicing the right things a little bit every day.
I love it. Amazing. Constant and never-ending improvement. CANI. There's an acronym I heard once, so feeling that. Octavio, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so glad that you are carrying the flag of Tantra Hatha Yoga, this original ancient lineage. And, together maybe we can help improve the branding of Tantra, because it's an ancient, beautiful spiritual technology. It's not a modern sex cult. And it should be revered for what it is. And I really found incredible results with the practice and practicing with you, and very grateful to know you, and excited for people to try some of your work. If they want to find out more about you, go to the practice Bali, or just Google the practice, or Google Octavio Salvado. You'll come up with the practice. It's a place in Bali, in Canggu. Incredible if you're in Bali. When things open up, go there. Otherwise, practice online with you. We'll try to get a class to our community. And thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, James. Yeah, thank you, brother. I look forward to starting a revolution with you.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.